Isn't it strange how golf these days is everything but golf? We're engulfed in this dramatic LIV versus PGA war with a new controversy making headlines every single day. Even Rory has had enough of the drama now, as he's finally called for peace talks between the two tours. And while the Irishman is attempting to get the PGA and LIV to coexist, his feud with Greg Norman is just getting started. Keep watching for more. First up, time for compromise. If you've watched some of our videos in the past, then you probably know we've been talking about both tours coexisting for the longest time now. We didn't say when it would happen, but we did talk about how that's pretty much the only option left. And in light of some recent events, we're glad players like Rory have started to realize it's doing nothing but harm to the classy game of golf. Remember the good old days when we used to tune into golf to watch our favorite players put on a banger of a show at a course? It seems like it's been years now, considering PGA versus LIV is the only news making headlines now. But yeah, McIlroy thinks it's time Greg Norman and Jay Monahan sat down and decided something in favor of golf. It doesn't have to be about the players or the prize money and whatnot. It needs to be about golf and fans. Because, let's face it, the last thing we want is to see our favorite players beat each other up for joining LIV or staying at the PGA. I believe there is no more time to waste. PGA Tour and LIV will have to find a compromise and speak for the sake of our sport. A special shout out to Rory though. Not only is it a step in the right direction, but it also has a lot of significance because, let's not forget, he's currently at #1 in the world rankings. Next up, a hard pill to swallow. It's not like the Irishman has dished out an ultimatum demanding LIV and PGA reach an agreement tomorrow or something. He knows it's going to take a lot of time, but it has to happen. Things can't keep going like this forever now, can they? We don't want to say this, but if LIV versus PGA is the new golf, then the game might actually end up losing fans. But it must have been a pretty hard pill to swallow, right? Let's not forget that Rory was one of the most vocal golfers out there when it came to criticizing LIV. He said all sorts of stuff like how he hated what the Saudi-backed tour was doing to golf and how it's super hard to stomach the traders. And by traders, he meant golfers who jumped ship to join the LIV. Looks like the tables have now turned. But yeah, ignore us guys. We've only been saying this like forever. Coexisting was and will always be the only option. It's pretty obvious the PGA can't keep up with LIV since it's such a rich tour. Golfers under the LIV banner are getting contracts in the 50 to 100 million region with crazy prize money at each event. Also, remember how PGA Tour Commissioner Jay said players who've left for LIV will never be allowed to participate in an event again? Yeah, that's probably not going too well since the world's #1 has just called for peace talks. Moving on, protecting the game. Rory is finally starting to see the bigger picture now, and to be honest, we're not going to blame him for what he said earlier. You gotta understand how it must have felt. He's used to playing with these guys, and one by one they've all abandoned the tour to go join LIV. But at the same time, you can't blame anyone for wanting to make the move. And since we can't say anything to Rory and can't blame the Saudi rebels, what's the next step in the war? Simple. We have to protect the game. The Irishman had some really interesting things to say about golf and how both tours needed to coexist and protect the game. See, unlike football or some other big sport, golf is a small game. It has a small reality, and the only way to protect it in the future is to stick together and avoid another split like this one. Look at it this way. For soccer, you have the English Premier League, Serie A, Bundesliga, and La Liga. But golf, it's always been the PGA Tour, and the fact that just one new entrant was able to cause such a huge rift is extremely worrying. It's time Greg and Jay sat down and discussed the real things before the game gets hurt because of all this drama. Following up, golf isn't LIV or PGA. Obviously, no one has openly talked about this yet, but it's in the air. The commissioner and players both feel the PGA is superior in front of LIV. It's the oldest and most watched tour in all the world, and that's also one of the reasons why the management has been so reluctant to see LIV as their equal. But we're going to keep saying this until all of this goes away. Golf isn't PGA or LIV. It isn't about the tour, the prize money, the sponsors, or all that. And don't get us wrong, we know that's what runs the show. But golf is about the fans, the little kids lining up to see such a classy and challenging game. It's those sunny afternoons and windy evenings which make golf what it is. So when Rory talks about how the PGA has done everything it could to coexist with the Saudi-backed tour, it just boils our blood. Everyone has been smack talking about guys who left for LIV and how they did it for the money. There have been rumors of secret meetings and whatnot to prevent LIV from getting world ranking points. What's even going on here? Both sides will have to compromise to coexist, and credit Rory for saying what he said, but his role in all of this has just begun. Up next, the extra incentive. This is just an example of the things Rory has been doing to intensify the rift between the two tours. Again, we're not pointing any fingers now since all of that is in the past, but his beef with LIV Golf CEO Greg Norman isn't helping at all. After going past Greg's record of 20 wins on the US PGA Tour, Rory talked about how he's pumped to have beaten his record. You're probably wondering though, what's wrong if he said that? Well, he slipped in something really sneaky. He said Greg gave him an incentive to beat him, and what might that incentive be? You guessed it, LIV Golf. But it seems like he's sobered up now. He's no longer PGA PGA's poster boy when it comes to ripping apart LIV. And while it's totally okay to have a healthy competition with one of the greatest golf players of all time, making it about LIV versus PGA is going against what he's currently preaching. Speaking of healthy competition, there's another record held by Norman that the Irishman wants to beat. He wants to surpass Norman in the number of weeks spent as the world's #1. We're not gonna lie, guys, that's a tough one. Rory is currently in his 107th week, and he has a long way to go before he surpasses Greg's 331 weeks at the top. He's no stranger to the game, though. Becoming the world #1 might be hard, but it's actually staying there that's more difficult. Last but not least, Greg hits back. Rory can go on smashing all the records he'd like, but the LIV CEO knows he's untouchable at this point. Sure, the Irishman may have more US PGA Tour wins than him, but he still has more than 200 weeks to go before he smashes his record of the number of weeks as world #1. Oh, and Norman also taunted him a bit by giving him his next challenge. Before McIlroy can even think of being the world #1 for 332 weeks, he better go out and win 91 tournaments globally. This is the golf we're used to seeing, just straight up competition. No LIV, no PGA, a modern-day great trying to leave behind a legacy to match the one and only Greg Norman. But will he be able to beat his records? Well, we're not gonna lie. It's going to be very difficult. Rory was right when he said that staying at the top was much harder than getting there. World #2 Scottie Scheffler is trailing close behind, just a couple of points away from the Irishman. And since things are starting to get better now, who knows? LIV might end up getting world ranking points too. Then it's going to get even trickier for McIlroy to stay at the top since there are a lot of big guns playing in the Saudi-backed tour. Let's see how things play out. For now, all we're hoping for is the golf war to finally be over. That's it from our side, folks. So what do you think? Is the Irishman right about both tours having to coexist? Let us know in the comments below. Remember, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos in the future. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.